And just to introduce myself a bit as well, my name is Runnel. I'm the CEO and founder of Reverse Resources. We are building a platform to track and trace garment production waste to recycling. And I've been running my startup for 5 years, very targeted on circular economy and creating impact through business. And I'm really fascinated to be here with this panel, because what I've learned in impact business world, you always meet these people who have really interesting stories and really, like, you have seen everything, things that many people haven't, which brings you into impact business, eventually combining the things that you see in the world and you want to change something. So for introduction, maybe you can just introduce yourself, Sonia and Gisli as well. Like, what is your story? What has brought you into impact business topic?
Hi, I'm Sonia. My career started in Silicon Valley. I was a corporate tech executive. I just quit my job in Microsoft last month. I was looking after Microsoft Bangladesh, Myanmar, Laos, Bhutan, the South Asian emerging markets. And my journey as a tech executive led me to be an entrepreneur and then into an investor. So I invested in a lot of startups that are in South Asia, but they're in health tech, edutech, fintech, agri-tech, because I'm interested in solving social local problems, but I'm not a charity. I believe in making money. I believe in scaling, and I believe in sustainable development. So I'll leave it at that.
Yes, hello, I'm Gisli, and I come from Iceland. In Iceland, we're only 350,000, which means that you normally have a day job, and then you have some kind of volunteering that you do. I started out in the tech industry as a developer. Sold my first program when I was 14, worked for Microsoft as well and a number of other companies. But I always had this other life. And my other life was the fact that I really liked helping people, in particular people during times of crisis. And I started out as a search and rescue volunteer, and then started dealing with disasters, including around the world. But I was lucky that about 12 years ago, somebody was stupid enough, and I always put it that way, stupid enough to pay me for what I was doing as a volunteer. I normally spent like more hours volunteering than I was working. And now somebody wanted to pay me to do that. So for the past 12 years, I've been at the intersection of disasters and technology, been an advisor to governments and international organizations, but I've also responded to almost every single big emergency in the past decade or so, including dealing with things like Ebola crisis, which is an invisible thing that attacks you, and earthquakes, and most recently I came from Mozambique. But for me, it's always been about how can you use innovation and technology to address the needs of people in their biggest times of crisis. And, you know, in my work, I've traveled all over the world. Bangladesh, we discovered that. We all had Bangladesh in common. You know, you've gone to all these places and you see that you can do technology or leverage technology to solve problems in these places that truly improve people's lives. You know, when I was living in Silicon Valley the last few years, I like to tease my American friends. I told them, 2007, when I first came to Kenya, I could pay things with my mobile phone, and you guys are still writing checks. You know, fintech really took off in Africa in 2007. And now we're still trying to figure out how to do mobile money and other things here, even here in Europe. And they were figuring it out because 95% of the people in Kenya are unbanked. And this became, you know, their mobile phone became their bank. And now, multiple times their GDP goes through the mobile money system. And Vodacom, who are the mobile operator that launched M-Pesa, their mobile money thing, is getting 1 cent every transaction. And they're getting, hundreds of millions of transactions. So it's generating more money than actually their phone calls. So there are ways to do things, create solutions, have an impact to the lives of people in a sustainable and, great way. Like you said, you got to make money on these things. You could say, hey, I want to build fantastic houses around the world. But if you don't do it in a sustainable way that enables you to grow and become bigger and take it to scale, it's just a good idea.
Yeah, thank you. We were also in backstage discussing a lot about these issues. What comes first? Is it business or impact? And also, as the panel is called out to be SDGs and business, let's touch this issue first to get over with the SDG issue. In the businesses and in this world of impact business, how does SDG framework help you, or what does it mean? I myself use circular economy concept, and there are so many different other frameworks. Why SDGs, and is it something that is helping, and how is it helping?
How many people here know what the SDGs are?
It's not STDs.
No, not STDs. Let's be very clear.
Right.
Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, 17 goals that governments around the world thought would be a great thing for mankind to solve by 2030. Now, remember, it was created by politicians and people in bureaucratic institutions. Okay, so they're probably all achievable because giving a big stretch goal would have been difficult for them. To me, they're just one more, framework that we can use. It's the corporate world is starting to use it like saying, well, we're working on goal number 5, 3, and 8. And we're doing a joke that we would ask each other what 5, 3, and 8 would be, but we'll get you guys to answer that one on Twitter or something. But it's a framework. It's telling us we should focus on environment, on education, on gender, all those important topics. But those, I think, working in, around the world, we know that there are a lot of problems, and they're different in each country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to add on that, what is the reality for someone sitting at 40,000 foot level may not be the reality for someone at the bottom of the pyramid, right? So every country, every culture has its own problems, and as Gisli said, it's a framework, we understand. But even SDGs, as of 2018, haven't really been very successful. They're not on track to meet the goals by the year 2030. So what's happening is this new enterprise, the social enterprise is coming up because they're saying, we're going to solve the problems of the local social problems of each region. And that's where the SDGs are trying very hard to plug in. But when you're coming from a part of the world like I'm from Bangladesh, we have 160 million people. Children die of malnutrition. Am I going to worry about the environment? I'm not. I'm first going to save my child, then I'm going to say, let me put him to school, let him have good health, and then I will worry about the other things. So the reality and where you're looking at is what the problem is. Now, what social enterprises are doing, what charity and philanthropy did was they failed. They had a one-year approach, a very short-term approach of saying, I did this, I gave so much money, but they really didn't solve a problem. The problem is not incident management, it's root cause, right? So you look at the fundamentals of countries where they need help, the countries that are the least developed countries and economies. And that's when you say, okay, what is social impact for this region, which is not social impact for the United States and the United Nations headquarters, right? And that's where we say, okay, we look at health, we look at education, we look at inclusion. We leave no one behind, and it is about making money. It's never about a charity or a philanthropy. So a lot of people think that social enterprise or impact-driven projects are a branch of a philanthropy and charity, and I'm telling you, I do a lot of these projects in making money, long-term sustainability, scaling, profitability are key. And you can do it because these people, Bangladesh, for example, 8% GDP growth. They have money. We fail our nation. We don't know what to serve to them. We still try to serve the people, the influential people, the haves and not the have-nots. I'll give you a small story. We've got 60 million laborers. We've got 70 million farmers. The labor class, $32 billion is the remittance for Bangladesh. I had just gotten together with some, and I wanted to know what are the problems they have. Few of them told me that they work in the Middle East, they send money to Bangladesh, but their wives and their children are embarrassed to introduce them to their friends. Because while they're working and doing some construction work or some tailoring work, which is not a very sophisticated, he's given his family a standard that is very high where he doesn't fit in. He told me, why don't you make an app for me? Teach me how to dress. Why can't I wear striped pants with check shirts? Why do you always know that I'm a laborer when I'm on the airport? Because my luggage is it's different, it's outlandish. Teach me how to speak in parties so I don't embarrass when I open my mouth. So these are people who have money, and there's lots of these examples. I've just given you one example of one segment of the population of 60 million people. Imagine an app that teaches them this, $1 per laborer per quarter. You're a unicorn right there. Enough said.
How about you, Morten?
No, I think the framework from UN and the way that we actually have a way to talk about it now, it's like developing a language. I think it's incredible that somebody, it must have been 7-8 years ago, went all the way through all the hassle of actually getting this out so we have a common denominator, because otherwise we talked a bit about it yesterday. I mean, it's so complex to understand the difference between ecology and sustainability and environment. But now we have a good framework, and I love to, if I'm bored, I start looking at them and see if I can help invent something that fits in there, or how we could, in these two companies that I've shown today, how we could be more inclusive on this point. The problem sometimes is, of course, because I would love to, all the stuff that I've shown today, I would love to go directly for refugee homes in Syria. Or I've been very active in Bangladesh as well. It's a crazy place.
Yes, I know.
People are so poor. You can understand. But I would love to start down there, go all in. But here we're back to the profitability. We have, my chairman has, my ultimate chairman is, as I think I said, Mother Earth, yeah. And then my real chairman, a Chinese bastard, who's my best friend. He said, we have to start with the eco lodges where we can make the maximum amount of money, because otherwise we can never move down to social housing and all the way down to where I would love to spend my time with refugee homes. And we will get really good at this because we're kind of held accountable with these goals. I'm very impressed that somebody could get this formulated and get us to talk about it today. And it's not that many people who left, because it's kind of boring as well, yeah.
And I think you touch upon one point, which is that, one approach that people who want to have an impact use is to start at the top of the pyramid and find out ways to scale that down to the lower bottom of the pyramid, where where you need to get that $150,000 unit to be $15,000 or $1,500, in order for it to scale out to those people at the bottom of the pyramid. And I think one of the things that we, as startups and as investors need to figure out is that there are going to be business models that we need to tweak. You've probably all heard of Tom's Shoes, where you buy one pair of shoes, they give a pair in Africa. That's, one approach that people have used. Warby Parker does the same with glasses. But so that's one model of having, the top of the pyramid kind of pay for the bottom of the pyramid. But there are also, like you said, ways to have the bottom of the pyramid actually be paying for things. There's a great startup called Angaza that is selling solar power to people in Africa. Now, for people in Africa, buying a $200 solar panel unit is impossible, because they're living off $2 to $3 a day. Now, But when you analyze what they're spending those $2 to $3 a day on, you realize that they're spending up to 50 cents a day on kerosene to have light in their houses in the evenings, for their children to be able to read and learn and all these other things. So if you find ways to do similar to what you said, lease out the unit for 20 years for $5 a month, we need to do the same thing. So Angasa does the same. You basically pay less than 50 cents a day through your mobile phone, of course, and that turns on or off your solar system. So if you can't afford the 50 cents this day, your solar panel will not work that day. But you pay that for an extended period of time, and that includes the capex costs of your solar panel, the maintenance, and all of those things. So there, they have created a business model that takes something that is expensive, but makes it affordable to the people at the bottom of the pyramid. So there are different kind of things like that we need to think about, different business models, different approaches. And for some people, it's like, oh, no, that's too complicated. But it isn't. If you get inventive on this thing, you got to get some venture funding in some places, but you also got to find funding for funding that working capital. And that's maybe where we're lacking, funds and investors right now. But those that are doing investments in that space, actually issuing bonds that cover those kind of costs, they're actually getting a 15-20% return on investment, and that's just pretty good investment for many institutional investors.
That's probably a reason they gave Grameen the Nobel Prize, yeah?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I mean, that was high yield. No, I have an interesting, you have to stop me because I love to talk about myself, yeah? But I had an interesting dilemma that I had to walk through with my kids, and I would like to take the example here, and we can see if this is too much marketing or too little. So I showed you the place in Haiti, this beautiful beach. So we bought the top of our partners bought the top of the land, but down here you have a small fisherman's village. So because I'm from marketing and I love sales, so I told everyone, my foundation will go in, give the whole fishing village, they don't have running water and toilets, we'll give all of that for my foundation, so we can put up the fifth element. It's of course prerequisite that we're also going to build the resort on the other side, but I told my kids, I thought we should tell the marketing story first, that the foundation is giving water and sewage and electricity to the fisherman village. But they told me it was too much. I should do the resort first, and then we could give back. And then should we charge the fishing village, people in the village or not?
Exactly.
So how many people think we should charge the people in the village for giving them electricity, sewage, and water on the backside of a luxury resort? Yeah. Charge? No, I want to charge, but very little. But I mean, I'm from a country where we give 2% of GDP, and we've been throwing it out of the window over Africa for 40 years now. No, I mean, it's a lot of good stuff, amazing good people trying to do their best, but there's no business model. Imagine if we would have wrapped that in. And so, but it's crazy that we because we're from, we have so much here, we can't get our heads around the idea. Of course we should charge. It's not dignified. I mean, it's taking the dignity away not to charge.
And the thing is also that people are paying for these services today. People living in the slums of Kenya, for example, they are paying for water. Now, can you lower that cost and give them better water because your cost is lower? Yeah, but you can still charge them, because if you charge them, you enable the maintenance, and all the other things that are needed to be done.
And also,
there are no NGOs that are actually starting to apply this model. There's a great one called Splash, and the founder of that did a TED talk called, How to Kill Your NGO, which I loved, because his model is that he is installing water purification systems in orphanages And the orphanages then sell the access to the water to the community, and thereby are able to fund the maintenance and the operations of the water purification system. And that way, 10 years from now, he no longer needs to be in this business. And that's why he called it, how to kill your NGO. Because most of the NGOs are in the business of being in the business of raising funds. And, I work for NGOs, I sit on boards of NGOs, and the smart ones, they're actually trying to find ways to become, no longer needed by applying business to it. And that's the key.
Yeah, and if I can speak for the people of Bangladesh, they don't want charity. They don't want free things. They want to pay because they have it's their self-esteem, and also they value that when you get something you pay for, you value, and then you come into the business and make it more. You had a comment.
No, it's just from my perspective, I have been struggling with this issue for a long time. That what should come first? Should it be impact first and profit as a means to create impact? So this it is an interesting question of the starting point. You were talking about coming top down, and then there's the other approach is going bottom up to look at the really serious problems and finding a solution to that problem that is driven by the business case. So what should be the priority to it? Like, we have so many problems to be solved. And the other question is like, how should investors here understand which is better and which is worse?
In my mind, you don't need to be a startup or an entrepreneur that's doing something impact-wise. You're asking yourself the same question. Do you scale out? Do you get a lot of customers, or do you focus on profit? For a while in Silicon Valley, they thought just get enough users and that'll be the thing. The truth is, you always need to focus on at least have a path to profitability. You may not become profitable right away, but you have to have that path. You have to know how you're going to get there, because otherwise you're not going to be able to convince investors to actually put money into your business. Now, your impact is your passion. That's what your passion about the environment and tourism is what's driving your work forward. And that's what the investors are seeing, and they get infected by that passion. So if you don't focus on the impact and you don't put that, and then you're kind of limiting your passion at the same time. So for me, you need to focus on both.
I would just defer a bit because I fund startups, and to me, it's about monetizing. I'm not a charity, I'm not a philanthropy, so I will solve the problems which are genuine, they're local and social, but there is definitely a way to monetize. And that's what an impact investment means, because an impact investor is no different than the other investors. He's going to say, are you sustainable? Can you scale? And are you long-term revenue profitability? You have to answer these questions. So it's not about, so in my mind, impact, when I talk about impact investment, it's about real businesses, but that solve local and social problems, but the government cannot solve.
But it's also just the ultimate way of bragging, yeah? That you're smart enough both to invest and make money. But you also have to do it a little bit with the heart. So first of all, I can't wait to see what will come from this conference. I'll probably get 5 or 10 people from here to work with me on the going forward, because people, I'm on a mission, and if you don't like my mission, you don't have to be part of it, but we're able to have about 200 people working for us, the smartest people in the planet. I bet I'll get you to work for me, yeah? So they're here with a course, but they're also here because I'm crazy enough to have, and this is a good story, we have 3 minutes, so I'll do it fast, but with my passion, we went in, I saw some guys playing table tennis somewhere, drinking, and I heard this thing about this biochemistry dude who was gene manipulating a plant, and I had to start him to stop playing table tennis because you couldn't hear it. But he told his friend over this game that they found out how to gene manipulate a plant so that it would actually turn red if it would react with TNT, so it could find landmines. And I was like, hey, I have money, you have brains, let's go do it. So we went on the front page of Time magazine. It was called Ariza. It was incredible. And we were passionate, and we could convince anyone. And we were fairly good sales guys. One problem, think about it for 1 second. How do you plant that fucking plant? we didn't know. But we had the passion.
Yeah.
No, but we couldn't spread the seeds because this land doesn't take, you can't really get it into the ground, you know? It fucked up.
That's why I say.
We had to close it, but we tried.
Yeah, but
and I mean, and we're not, I'm already choppy enough, so I'm not missing that money we used on it. So onto the next one, with the passion, yeah? And I think that's what I want to sell. And basically, I also want more friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want more friends who have the same ideology. And I've also tried very young to be rich alone. It's fairly annoying. So this time, you know, I want to give you $500,000 when we become a unicorn if you chip in.
Absolutely.
Should we deal?
Hey, we're feeling left out, Morten. The ladies first.
Ladies first. I'll double it because you're both good looking.
No, so one other comment is vision without, you've heard this, right? Vision without execution is hallucination. There are lots of problems that have a core empathy and they have a moral compass, but you can't really solve them. So it's very tricky to kind of walk that line and say, if it's impact, but if it's not solvable, like the example you gave, it sounds really cool and sexy, but if you can't solve it, it's not, you're not making any impact.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that maybe touches upon a point that, you know, a lot of us, we want to solve problems for people somewhere else in the world. And we don't really understand their problems until we actually go there and live there. And we experience those problems ourselves. Especially, you know, trying to understand what it means for a person to live on $2 a day. And that's why we also need to support entrepreneurship in these countries. You know, you pointed out in Bangladesh, there's no VC community.
Yeah, there's no VC because they don't see.
She's going to be the first one. So let's, if you're LPs, let's make her the
Well,
first
someone's
one.
got to help them, right?
But you see, there's no, you know, there's no venture investments. There may not be enough role models, not enough mentors. All of us can mentor, and I've been doing that, helping mentor people in Nepal and in other places, because you can do that, even through something like Skype, you know?
Oh,
You
yeah.
can actually help out. And just being that mentor, you know, being that, we started in the nonprofit I work for, we started this program where we were connecting female executives in IT companies with women in developing countries. You can't imagine the bonds that were built between some high-level executives who really liked helping out people starting out. So help out. There's a great program, for example, in the Gaza Strip called the Gaza Sky Geeks, where they're helping people who have never gone outside of the 30-kilometer radius that Gaza City is. But they're entrepreneurs. They're like us. They want to do things. Okay? And you can help mentor them, you can help support them and do all kinds of things to help them break those barriers. And just, you know, help with that. And to the investors in the room, I'll say, if you put a $50,000 into a company in one of the developing countries, that's going to be like putting $5 million into a Silicon Valley company that's probably going to go bankrupt anyway 2 months later. They're going to use that for years.
Yeah.
So think about that. And the other thing I want to say, just to finish, is the fact that if you're an investor and you hear somebody talk about impact and passion and all of these things, don't think that's a charity case.
Yeah.
I have had that happen so often. People go like, oh, but I'm not a philanthropist, I'm a venture capitalist.
But
And
it's changing so hard now.
we're
We're really at a tipping point.
But if you are able to show them a revenue,
Yeah.
a business model, and all of these things, and the fact that you have a few billion potential customers or 160 million users, that's actually a possibility to make a lot of money.
Yeah, and from a technology perspective, data is the new currency. Data is electricity. And countries like Bangladesh, we've got 160 million people. If we can crack the problem for health, 160 million people, 100,000 doctors. Imagine what e-health can do, remote patient-doctor consulting. 40 million students, but 160 million. We've got demographic dividends. So the point I'm trying to make is that there are markets that haven't been looked at by the VCs, and these are markets that are going to give them the unicorns because we just have the base that if you ignite, the volcano will erupt.
Well, we ran out of time. I really wanted to ask a question from the audience, but I encourage all of you who actually have questions. They are really inspiring people. So let's go to the TransferWise corner and continue that discussion over there.